What's happening? What's going on, everybody? Oop, a little loud. Let's get into today's Raptors Happy Hour live stream here on the Jacob Gramegna / Amateur Sports channel. We are back for Wednesday, January 14th to cover the latest news surrounding the Toronto Raptors. And there's a lot of updates, even just 2 days after our previous rendition of the Raptors Happy Hour. If you don't know what we do on this show, we can break down everything related to the Raptors. We discuss, we react, we predict, and we chat about it amongst ourselves in the live chat as well. And we should have a good show here today. Like I said, a lot of new developments in the last couple of days since we covered the situation as it stood with the likes of Anthony Davis and Ja Morant. Fresh updates have definitely changed proceedings for the Raptors and how they can and maybe should approach the NBA trade deadline. So excited to cover that today. Like I said, it'll be a big focus on Ja Morant today. There'll be a big focus on Anthony Davis today along the way as well. We'll talk a little bit about RJ Barrett if we have time near the end of the show, discuss his impact, what he's doing for the team. And we'll also dig into a little bit of what's going on today, because some interesting stuff has come up today, and a little bit of the most recent game against the Philadelphia 76ers, because we didn't really get to wrap that one up last game, because midway through the third quarter, I said I've had enough torture for today and decided to shut it off. But granted, the Raptors, they made it a bit nicer for the box score, let's say. They could have just completely rolled over in the second half, and it kind of appeared at first as if they were, but the Sixers took their foot off the gas. One positive out of the game was that we got to see some Kyle Lowry minutes in Toronto. Now, would have been nice if he had scored. He took 3 shots. He was trying for the fans, but he couldn't score. And they were feeding him. They were trying to get him a bucket. They knew it's something that he wanted to accomplish, something he wanted to get, and just couldn't get one to go. And also, Jonathan Mobo wasn't really getting the memo. And look, granted, Jonathan Mobo's a guy fighting for NBA minutes, right? He's not going to go soft, but he didn't really get the memo in the sense of, let Kyle Lowry have one, right? It'd be a cool moment to let Kyle Lowry have one. So, I don't blame Jonathan Mobo, but again, they were trying to make that happen. But yeah, it was a rough game. The box score makes it look a lot nicer than it was. The Raptors got obliterated here. They allowed 80 points in the first half. They were down by 32, I think was the largest lead at one point. 33 largest lead got out to. The Sixers just weren't missing in the first half. These box score numbers are very misleading. The Sixers were shooting 80% for a huge chunk of the first half. They just were not missing. And for the first quarter and a half, first 18 minutes, the Raptors really were doing a good job defensively, a fine job defensively. They were contesting a lot of shots. They were rotating well, but the Sixers just were not missing. And at that point, second night of a back-to-back, I can probably forgive the Raptors and the players for being a little bit dejected, and just it wasn't going their way, and it fell off quickly, and there wasn't a ton that the Raptors could have done in that stage, and then they just lost the motivation. So, maybe there's a little bit of blame you can put there, but I'm not going to read too much into a game like this. This is just one where the other team got hot early, second night of a back-to-back. And in fairness, it was also a second night of a back-to-back for them. But I will not hold the Raptors to the sword for this performance. I'll just try to move on from this one and not really worry about it too much. I guess some of the worrying parts of it were that, well, Emmanuel quickly once again cannot hit a 3. That's alarming. After Scotty Barnes won his Eastern Conference Player of the Week award, which is fantastic, he had a bit of a dud of a performance there for the Raptors. I think he was 1 of 8 in the first half. Shots just, he was getting decent looks. He was getting to the rim. Shots weren't falling. And when they weren't falling, he started to kind of revert back to the kind of uglier style where He is relying on shots in mid-range. He's settling for shots in mid-range. So once we got to that point, there was like a little bit of an issue. But again, like things got ugly quickly. And I don't want to read too much into that. You know what I mean? Like, yes, you don't want to let that happen, but I don't like consider that a disastrous sort of performance. Obviously a disastrous sort of outcome. But like we've had far worse performances this season that didn't reflect as we've played worse and won. Like we've like probably a handful of times we've played worse than this and won. So shit happens sometimes. Not going to excuse poor shooting performances from Quickley, from Barnes, from Ingram. But again, there's an element of forgiveness from me for this one. Let's hope to bounce back in. It could be like a somewhat tough spot for the Raptors tonight against the Indiana Pacers. What's going on to the people in the chat? Thank you for joining me here early on in the stream. If you guys enjoy what you see from the stream today, do me a favor and hit the like button. Makes a difference to the channel, helps us out, helps support the content, and gets us out to more people. If you're new to the channel, you can consider subscribing to get involved with more Raptors content here on the channel, live Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern for shows like this, the Raptors Happy Hour, and I do for most Raptors games a watch-along, which we'll be doing tonight. I'll be live at 6:45 p.m. Eastern time for that Raptors versus Pacers game. So we'll be live 45 minutes after this stream ends. We're going back to back pretty much. Adam joining us in chat, Jimbo Jenkins joining us in chat, FTC Clip joining us in chat, which is winner one's all to count, it would seem, and Alamdar as well. All right, Alamdar says rumors are scaring him. Jimbo says Raptors back in the Davis sweepstakes. Yes, we'll touch on all of that here today, but as you mentioned there. Alamdar, these trade rumors are scaring me. This is interesting. We've had some very interesting developments over the course of the day in regards to trade rumors. The last couple of days, some stuff has heated up with Ja Morant, with Anthony Davis, but particularly today, we got some news that has really piqued the interest of a lot of Raptors fans, suggesting that perhaps a trade could even be imminent for the Raptors. Let's investigate to see if they are correct. So this came up this morning, and I have to be honest. I have to be completely honest. When this notification, I have notifications on for Underdog NBA to know when players are out and in, for just keeping up with the NBA and for also for sports betting purposes. Anyways, we got this morning, and when I saw this, as I was out on a walk with my dog, I was like, that could be something, and it's in relation to this tweet right here. Emmanuel Quickley downgraded to questionable Wednesday, per Blake Murphy. Very good source, Raptors information, but out of nowhere, kind of, Emmanuel Quickley downgraded to questionable. In the midst of Emmanuel Quickley likely being aggressively shopped by Raptors hierarchy in order to get a trade. So immediately my sensors start going, right? My radar is going off on this one. I get into windy mode, Brian Windhorse mode. Now, why is that? And it got a little bit even perhaps more conspiracy-like when we got news that Emmanuel Quickley and Garrett Temple have been downgraded to questionable for tonight's game, like out of nowhere. And both of the players have back spasms. Listen, something smells a little bit fishy with that. Out of nowhere, both of them have back spasms. Made me think. I got a few messages like, what's going on here? Is something going on? And to be honest, obviously, I don't know for sure, but we can kind of investigate maybe a little bit as to what's going down here. So to preface like the skepticism involved, it's possible for a player to have back spasms. Absolutely. It's possible for two players to have back spasms. And again, part of my skepticism is Garrett Temple also being downgraded to questionable. Like, if it was just Quickly, I'd be like, that's weird. If it was like Quickly and Grady Dick, I'd be like, that's really weird. But the fact that it's Garrett Temple, it really doesn't seem to me like Garrett Temple would need to be involved in any sort of trade like this. You know, we've investigated like using Emmanuel Quickly as a trade piece for Ja Morant in particular, as a trade piece for Anthony Davis, but there isn't really any need for Garrett Temple to be involved in those trades. So him being downgraded to questionable kind of added to my skepticism on this situation. So I tried to dig in a little bit more on this. Oftentimes you can go to prediction markets to kind of see if there's any information that's indicative of a move. And honestly, for Anthony Davis, there wasn't really anything that was kind of pointing in that direction. Like for Anthony Davis, he was at a 33, 38, 39% chance to get traded earlier on. And like as these stories started to break, maybe a slight spike and then went back down. Look, there's a lot of information that can influence these markets. It's not necessarily Emmanuel Quickly being listed as questionable, but kind of ticked down. So that wasn't really anything alarming. For Ja Morant, though, there actually was, as of this morning, as this news is coming out this morning, there actually was a mini spike from low 70s up to low 80s in percentage chance of Ja Morant getting traded. So that kind of made me think as well, maybe there is something that could be to this. Again, there were a lot of factors that could influence a market like that, and it's possible it is completely irrelevant to the Emmanuel Quickly being downgraded to questionable, etc. It's just like those things do line up a little bit, which again started to kind of pique my interest in all of this. Now, I was going to talk about the Ja Morant situation here anyways because of the new developments to the story around him, because the Raptors were in for Trae Young. They tried to get Trae Young, but the issue in getting Trae Young was that the Hawks didn't want Emmanuel Quickly. They said no. They would rather have CJ McCollum's expiring contract than Emmanuel Quickly and a pick. Maybe multiple picks. Fair enough, okay? Not a great contract. But according to Kevin O'Connor of Yahoo Sports, the Memphis Grizzlies have specifically said that they would be willing to take on bad contracts in order to make this deal done. Now, they speculate, like in the video here, Ja Morant for Emmanuel Quickly, Grady Dick, and future picks. That is what I would be looking to do as well if I were the Raptors. But specifically, the quote is the one here. They're signaling a willingness to take on bad contract. NBA sources don't expect Morant's market to be much different than it was for Trae Young because, they want to trade him, who was dealt to the Wizards for just an expiring contract in CJ McCollum and a solid role player in Corey Kispert. Fine, but not what you'd expect for a player like Trae Young. The Hawks divert the short-term expiring deals. Memphis is taking an opposite approach. Executives around the league say the Grizzlies are signaling a willingness to take on bad contracts if it means being compensated with young players or picks. That is something the Raptors can do. But the Grizzlies aren't going to get that much from Morant. Think pick swaps, not unprotected first. Think moderate bets on rookie contracts, not exciting young players. Even getting those assets might require Memphis to take on bad money in return. So all of that entire explanation there lines up exactly with what the Toronto Raptors are able to offer in this deal. And as we saw up there, it is Emmanuel Quickly, Grady Dick, and future picks. That could just be the market for Ja Morant. And there may not be a whole catalog of teams interested. Now, other teams have been interested, like the Miami Heat. We have to gauge what the interest levels are of Ja Morant to play for Toronto because you have to gauge those interest levels before you make that trade. But, when considering the risks, and I talked about this a lot already on Monday, but considering the risks of the Ja Morant trade, like obviously there are risks there. Here's a player who's been suspended on multiple occasions. Here's a player who has really butted head with his coach this season, hence why he's up for trade, so he's being shopped so aggressively by the Memphis Grizzlies. What is important to remember is the contract situation that the Raptors have here with Immanuel Quickley. Like, we know it's bad. We know it's bad. Like, that's not a secret anymore. $32.5 million every year until the end of the 28-29 season. 3.5 more years of this contract. Obviously, there's a risk associated with Ja Morant, but as I said, I'm willing to take that risk because of the high level of talent he can display if he's in the right environment. What you have to remember when you're considering trades like this is that if you're trading away Immanuel Quickley, you are also having a favor done for you by the other team. The other team is doing a favor for you when they are taking the contract of Immanuel Quickley. That is a contract right now that the Raptors would have to give up assets essentially to get off of, or use it to help match salary for a one-away star in a very bad situation. That's the status. Like, we're not talking about like $50 million per year from a contract perspective like some other stars. Like, we're talking about something that's not too out of the range of what Immanuel Quickley's making. Here's Ja Morant's value for contracts. This year, it's 39.5. Next year, it goes to 42.1. The year after that, 44.8. 44.9. That's not like outrageously more than Immanuel Quickley, at least for now. Like, that's only $7 million more. That's not a ridiculous amount, and not something that is ridiculous to get to. Hence why there is the possibility of it being Immanuel Quickley, Grady Dick, and draft pick compensation. And the buzz right now, the news right now, is that may not even have to be an unprotected first-round pick involved to get this done. The Raptors may be able to get Ja Morant. The Raptors might be able to get Ja Morant, get off the Immanuel Quickley contract, which is a big deal, I think, and not have to spend a first-round pick to do either of those things. That kind of sounds like a win for me. And when I see the Immanuel Quickley out of nowhere getting downgraded questionable, it does make me, honestly, a little bit excited. A little bit scared, but also a little bit excited. However, it was cut a little bit short of, like, maybe something's going down. I mean, I'm not going to completely back away from that, but Michael Grange did some digging. Raptors beat reporter for Sportsnet says, got a couple of questions regarding Quickley and tell me listeners. Question was Indy, poked around. Yes, both guys legit banged up with the back spasms in each case. And with all respect, I don't think at this stage a trade, real or imagined, is hinging on Garrett Temple's availability. So again, that's where part of my skepticism lied. Like, why? Like, Quickly, sure. Like when Trae Young got traded, he was already out, but out of nowhere, CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert was listed out with an illness. People were like, well, that is certainly interesting. So when I saw the Quickley news, I was like, that's certainly interesting. But with Temple as well, it starts to become a little bit more believable. So as far as this trade happening, it doesn't seem as though the trade is imminent, but it's certainly something that is completely possible before we get to the February 5th NBA trade deadline. We'll just have to keep monitoring the situation here on the channel. Again, I wanted to believe something was going to happen here, but for the people, the skepticism of the Ja Morant situation is completely valid, and skepticism in trading for a guy like Ja Morant, for sure. You're right to be skeptical about that, but again, it is very important to remember that in doing this, in getting a trade done here, you're getting off the Quickley contract, which should honestly cost you a first to do. But you can get Ja and get off the contract and not spend a first. That is, like, you can get off the Quickley contract without spending a first. That might be a big deal, And hey, getting off Grady Dick right now might not be the worst thing in the world either. It's been so disappointing this season from him, man. Absolutely. Ja Morant, Alamdar point doesn't good as well. Ja Morant's also out for this game. That's true. However, he's been out for the recent stretch of games. Like, that's not like out of nowhere. Ja Morant's out for the game is tomorrow, by the way. I believe it's a European game, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Which, granted, that originally they were trying to get him back for that game. Yeah, it's a European game. against the Magic. I don't know where. Let me quickly look it up. Probably like Paris. Oh, Berlin and London. Okay. They're trying to get him back for that. So granted, they were trying to get him back and he's not back, which is something as well. But he's been out for a few games in a row. Like, it's not like out of nowhere. Also, now that I think of it, these guys are in Europe. They're probably not working on getting a deal done while the team is in Europe. That kind of lowers the chances of a trade being like imminent like tonight. But certainly I spent the day making sure I was checking my phone consistently for any notification that that would come up in regards to this. Right? That's what I'll say. If it is RJ including the Ant 80 trade, we got to fire Bobby. I mean, I don't agree. I don't really agree with that. I'd be okay. I mean, I'm not like super sold on an Anthony Davis trade, but if they get it done, it's probably gonna have to include RJ. And for the questions around Anthony Davis availability, you can also raise questions about RJ's availability. I certainly wouldn't call it a fireable offense. Wonder what the starting lineup will be with so many out. Yeah, so Quickly isn't confirmed out either. Like Quickly might even just end up playing tonight, which is something as well. Starting five. Let me see the updates on. I don't think RJ Barrett is back yet. Scotty Barnes is playing. Brandon Ingram will be playing. No Pirtle. I think Pirtle's still out. RJ Barrett's still out. So we'll probably see. Well, Jamal Still will start at point. If Quickly's out, Jamal Still will start at point guard. We will probably see Abaji back. I think we'll see Abaji back in the starting five. Then we'll go Barnes, Ingram, Murray, Boyles. Shooting guard, I guess. They may not go Abaji. He's barely played lately. But, like, who else starts there? Quite a bit of defense. I don't know. You could probably just pick. You pick a lot of people. You could make a case for Abaji. You can make a case for Battle. You can make a case for, you can make a case for A.J. Lawson. Elijah Martin might even, to be honest, Elijah Martin's been getting minutes the last couple of games. Might be Elijah Martin who gets to start today, to be honest. If Quickly's out, I'll be interested to see what Darko Rajakovic does end up going for. Anyways, going through the chat a little bit more. AX Izzo joining us. Daniel Berry Sports highlights. What's going on? Garrett Tillman got back spasms from the conga line. He does it a lot. He's practiced it a lot, so I don't think it's that. Jimbo says, Bobby Webster masterclass incoming. We'll see. He hasn't had a chance to, branch out on his own and make these trades, so we'll wait and see on that one. MLG Beavis, I think Grady is cooked. Unfortunately, it is pointing towards that direction. I'm concerned. I'm very concerned about Grady Dick right now. Absolutely. Can't compare RJ to Anthony Davis. I'm not trying to compare them, but it's not like what I'm saying, it's not like RJ Barrett is the durability king. Even if John doesn't work out, let him walk in 2027. Yes. There's less time on his contract where you can just, if it doesn't work out, it's okay compared to what we have right now. Martin is better than Ochai. Yeah, I'm just wondering if because they've started Ochai before and he's been involved with the guy before. I don't know. I would probably start Elijah Martin if Emmanuel didn't play today. I've talked myself into that. I'd rather keep Jacoby and over Grady's point. I would as well. But I said it on Monday. If the trade getting done or not getting done hinges on including Jacoby over Grady, I would probably still do that trade. Anyways, we've talked a little bit here about Anthony Davis, and we started off the show. Somebody said we are back in the Anthony Davis. Let's find the exact tweet here. Joe Jenkins in chat says, back in the Davis sweepstakes would be quite a gamble. Back in those sweepstakes we are. And even from just a couple of days ago, we've had a new update that really strengthens not only the Raptors, but really any team's chances of acquiring Anthony Davis in a trade. Let's dig into it. So the update comes from Shams Charania of ESPN. You know who that is. He provided the update here. Anthony Davis will not require surgery on his hand after a second opinion with specialist, Dr. Steven Shin, whatever. And he will be reevaluated in 6 weeks, league sources tell ESPN. So big news for the Anthony Davis trade front because there was worry after, I think it was ligament issue in his hand, I think specifically his thumb, that it could require surgery and that would require him to miss months of NBA action. But because of this development, 6 weeks, that might be something an NBA team is much more willing to wait out. It could get Anthony Davis back mid to late February or early March. And if you are a team that is vying for the playoffs and pushing for the playoffs, this could give you a rejuvenated Anthony Davis back for those playoffs and the late push in the regular season. When Anthony Davis had this update come out about him and the injury, his probability to get traded really plummeted. Like I think he was trending, and we'll pull it up here. I think he was trending into like the 40s, maybe even higher, and then it just plummeted down to like a 12% chance of getting traded. So yeah, he's even higher actually. For a brief moment, and we're looking on Calci here, prediction market to see. He was actually up to like mid 70s for percentage chance of getting traded just like a week ago. Then with this new development, he plummeted down to low 10s, like teens, 10 to 20% chance. Now that we know he doesn't require surgery, we got up to like around 40. Now we're down to 22. We're in like the 20% range. So we've gone up a little bit on his chances of getting traded because it's much more likely that a team is willing to wait it out and bring him in. So we talked about this in the previous live stream that we did because I said that even with like the surgery, even if he does need surgery, that could provide the Raptors with an opportunity to get him at such a cut price deal, wait until the end of the season, get him back for next season. Well, now it becomes a case of you might still be able to get him on a pretty cut price deal, but you also get him back this season. The Raptors are 4th in the East right now. Hopefully they make the playoffs. They should from here. And if they do make the playoffs, they'll have Anthony Davis back, in theory, for those playoffs. So I don't want to get into, the possibility of the trade happening necessarily because we talked about that a lot in the last stream. What I do want to discuss is what the trade would have to look like. Now that we have a little bit more information in regards to the Raptors actually are interested. Like we're getting lots of reports the Raptors are genuinely interested in making this trade. Now that we have a lot more information in regards to this, I want to just revisit what it would actually take to make this trade happen just to see, is this something that we would actually consider doing? So we'll pull up the trade machine here. We'll get the Raptors and the Dallas Mavericks involved. Anthony Davis getting sent to the Raptors. Now, this isn't like a Ja Morant situation where it's $39 million. This is $54 million the Raptors to stack up to. I'll continue to say it makes absolutely no sense to trade for Anthony Davis unless you're trading Jakob Poeltl as well. The trade has got to be built around Jakob Poeltl for me. I've seen reports that they might build it around Emmanuel Quickley and Barrett. But again, I don't really want to pair Anthony Davis with Jakob Poeltl, to be honest. So I'll put Jakob Poeltl in. If the Raptors are doing this, unfortunately, I really feel like they're going to do it with RJ Barrett. Emmanuel Quickley, maybe we can pull off a Ja Morant trade with Emmanuel Quickley and an Anthony Davis trade with RJ Barrett and get this one done. We'll try a couple versions here. I really do want to build it around Poeltl. So we'll try a version here with Poeltl and Barrett, but we'll also, for the sake of it, look at what it looks like with Poeltl and Quickley. So just off the rip here, We've got ourselves up to 48 million, so we're still not even quite there yet. But we'll throw in like Ochai Agbaji, and I think that should pretty much do it. Dallas Mavericks. So we need to remove 2 million from incoming value. Okay, that's probably doable with one of the cheaper contracts. Honestly, like strengthening a bit of guard depth wouldn't even be the worst thing in the world for the Raptors to do. Maybe just add to like the depth in the center position, bring them home. Dwight Powell, and okay, so that's something that works out. So Anthony Davis, a cheap contract. Let's say Dwight Powell for the sake of it. I don't think he'll provide like anything for the Raptors, but let's just try it. Dwight Powell. This is a trade that probably like a solid framework for the Dallas Mavericks to work around. I don't know what sort of value they can expect to get back from Anthony Davis, but maybe like a Luka Doncic in another universe, but. Obviously, there needs to be picks here. The Jakob Poeltl contract is not desirable. It's been proven for a while that the RJ Barrett contract is not desirable around the NBA. That's not opinion. That's fact. Okay? Don't come for me. Teams don't want the RJ Barrett contract. Anyways, picks need to be involved here. I'm reluctant to give two. I'm really reluctant to give two. I would be somewhat happy if you could go for Anthony Davis. You get off the Poeltl contract. Somewhat reluctant to trade Barrett, but it just might have to come to that. And you only give away one first. I could be enticed by that. And I know that there are issues with Anthony Davis's availability. Everyone knows about the availability issue with Anthony Davis. There's also some availability issues with Jakob Poeltl. It's not like he's always available. And right now, Jakob Poeltl has 5 years left on his contract. He's owed a lot of money in the future. And there's a possibility he's just completely cooked because of his back right now. He hasn't been healthy at all this season. We're halfway through the season. He hasn't been healthy at all. There is a genuine worry here. There's a genuine worry here. Okay? For Poeltl. You could even argue teams are doing you a favor by taking the Jakob Poeltl contract right now. So there needs to be some sort of value going back the other way. I don't think Dallas need to rush this trade. So I don't think Dallas take this. I'm pretty enticed by this and the idea of getting Anthony Davis for one first-round pick. I think if you did two, it would get done here. But I am a bit hesitant to go for two. So for the sake of just seeing, let's try and do this trade with Immanuel Quickley instead. Go for Immanuel Quickley. Jakob Poeltl. So we have to probably cut some money somewhere. So we need to add a bit of money coming from the Dallas side. So maybe we take out Dwight Powell, somebody a bit more expensive who they just might want to get off of. D'Angelo Russell, probably we're still not quite there. We need to cut fucking $300,000. So we could add, I don't know, minimum deal. Like, would they part with Dante Exum, for example? And hey, if we're trading a point guard, it might be good to get one back, a couple back even. That would be successful. So, just basically Anthony Davis, filler for Immanuel Quickley, Jakob Poeltl, Ochai Agbaji, and a first. This is also something that I could possibly get behind. I'm a little bit more reluctant because, like, as much as I worry about our point guard depth when you do this, I'm not sold on Jamal Shed being your starter. I think you can move Immanuel Quickley for Ja Morant, which is something that interests me as well. As bad as Quickley has been this season, it just alarms me to lose that floor spacing threat, that type of player. So, if then again, you're also getting off of this Immanuel Quickley contract, which is doing you a favor here, and you're getting Anthony Davis, and you're only paying a first, and you're getting Anthony Davis and getting off two bad contracts here. I recognize the concern with Anthony Davis. This is a trade I like less than like what the Raptors could possibly do to get Ja Morant, but if you can get off of a bad contract, you can bring in a player as talented as Anthony Davis. You can pray your medical staff, your trainers who have done a very good job with other players in the past. You can pray they do good work with him. I think that might be worth doing. I would that one I'm a little bit more scared of, but that might be something I would do as well. Anthony Davis coming into the team. We'll see what Bobby Webster's playing at and how aggressive he wants to be with moves like this. But I can already tell from the chat, and you can let me know as well. I can already tell that people are not going to be interested in Anthony Davis. And I understand it. Like, I understand it completely. It scares me a little bit as well. It's just a superstar you could bring in. It's a certain level of... I'm a little enticed by that, you know? Sell the way ahead says, here's the thing. I would give everything to get 80 and go win a championship. This year, he's a perfect fit, but he's perfect fit, everything. I don't think he's perfect fit, to be honest. But he's only good when he plays. That's the problem. Yeah, there's availability concerns. There is going to be. He's been better lately, but this new one is a problem, for sure. Let's compare him, just for fun. Let's compare him to Jakob Poeltl's availability lately. So Poeltl last season played 57 games. The year before played 50. So everything that's come to the Raptors, availability has been a concern when it was never a concern previously in his career. 50 and 57. This year 21. And none of those 21 games have been healthy either. So a bit less. Davis is not going to play much this season. In fact, he's played only one less game this season than Poeltl. Last year he played in 51 games. The year before that he played in 76. So obviously there's a larger string of availability concerns in Davis's career. But in the last 3 seasons, so 2.5 seasons, Jakob Poeltl has played in 128 games. Anthony Davis has played in the last 3 seasons, 2.5 seasons. Anthony Davis has played in 147 games, if my math is correct there. So, yeah, I get there are availability concerns for AD, and I get these are newer concerns for Poeltl, but a lot of these Anthony Davis injuries lately have been more unique injuries, like unique to him. They've been more different. They've been different injuries. Whereas Poeltl, like this back issue, I am genuinely terrified that the back issue is not going to go away. And if it doesn't, this is going to be a Poeltl that will always be hampered by injuries going forward. Again, Poeltl is, if I'm betting who's going to play in more NBA games for the next 3 seasons after this, I'll put my money on Jakob Poeltl. But it's not as if there isn't similar risk to having Poeltl from an injury concern perspective. It's not as if it's uncomparable or like you can't even compare it to Anthony Davis. And the thing is, if I'm waiting for one of my centers to come back from injury, I probably want that center to be Anthony Davis more so than I want it to be Jakob Poeltl. Something to consider. You know, like yes, there are availability concerns, but it's not as if we eliminate all availability concerns by not making this trade. Right? But, again, I'm not going to pretend like there isn't any... I'm not going to pretend like you shouldn't be concerned about anything. You should be concerned about the injury stuff. It's just, maybe you should be concerned about it if we don't make the trade as well a little bit. Do you gamble on his availability because of how much better he is than what you have? You have to be able to quantify like the risk versus reward there. Do you bet on your medical staff? Right. That's been a winning bet previously. Why would they go after AD though. There's more bigs they could target. Like who? Sabonis? I'll pass. I'll happily pass on Domantas Sabonis. Other than that, I don't really know what the availability is like. Well, Jaren Jack, okay. MJ and Chaz, how about Jaren Jack Jr.? I would rather that. Yeah, I would too. Like, I'd rather have Jaren Jackson Jr. or Nikola Jokic. Anthony Davis might be up for trade and won't cost you like 3+ first-round picks. I love Jaren Jackson Jr., but it is much more realistic to be able to manufacture an Anthony Davis trade. That is where it's available. Like I'd much rather have Shea or Giannis, but like Anthony Davis is a realistic trade candidate right now. Not to say that Jaren Jackson Jr. is completely unrealistic though, but it won't be 1 first-round pick. I tell you that. I tell you that. Brandon Ingram, MLG said, but he's available for reason. So is Brandon Ingram, and it turns out he is all-star level. And if I was going to set the all-star teams right now, Brandon Ingram would begin. There's good players as well. You know, part of the reason available that Dallas fucking suck and have had horrendous roster construction over the last 2-3 years. They have just constantly made themselves worse over the last year and a half and now need to tank because of how mismanaged they were. That's part of it as well, you know? Anyways, what would Jaren Jackson Jr. cost, right? $35 million, much easier to match. I mean, I don't think Quickly can be in this because they're willing to trade Ja for bad cards because they want to trade Ja. They don't want to trade Jaren Jackson. Let's get to the money we need. Let's just get to the money we need here. We'll go Pirtle. We'll go Abaji. I don't see any reason why they would want Pirtle though. To be fair, they have Zach Edey. You know, I see no reason to want Pirtle. Okay, let's take him. You know what? I see no reason they would want Pirtle. RJ maybe because it's like less time in the contract. So let's put RJ. Because again, I don't want to trade RJ. I mean, it's Jaren Jackson. I would do it. I'd rather trade Pirtle. Listen, disclaimer before you yell at me. I would rather trade Pirtle or Quickly. I see completely zero desire from Memphis to take Jakob Pirtle or Emmanuel Quickly's contract when it comes to Jaren Jackson Jr. I see zero incentive from their side to do that. I see negative incentive. At least for RJ Barrett being involved, it's not quite as negative as those two. Hence why I'm going to build the trade with him. Okay? So, we're at 34 million there. So like, okay, would that just do it? To cut. Oh, sorry. So this is good other than the fact that Jaren Jackson, it says he's eligible to trade after January 13th. It's January 14th, so this just isn't updated yet. So this would work. How many fucking picks? Like, honest to God, 3 might not even do this. 3 picks may not even get this done. Let's just, for the hell of it, we'll put in 3 picks. We'll put in a swap. No, it should be other choice. Other team has right to swap. 2027 pick. Let's throw this in. To be honest, I don't even fucking think they'd take that. I don't even think they'd want to do that. Like, it'd probably have to be CMB somewhere in here. So yes, there are players I would rather trade for than Anthony Davis. The Mavericks might want to trade Anthony Davis. I really don't understand why Memphis would want to trade Jaren Jackson. Unless they could be doing a full reset, but it's going to cost so much more for the Raptors to do that I just don't think that's really viable. What could be more viable is, okay, let's look at another target. Let's look at Trey Murphy because I wanted to discuss him. look, the Pelicans are 9-32. They don't own their pick this year. Okay? Atlanta do. New Orleans are 9-32 and have no draft picks this year. It's pretty bad. Like, yes, they got Derek Queen with this year's first, but they don't have. Okay, sorry, correction. They have Atlanta's pick this year. Atlanta are, I think, going to be a playoff team. Let's read the stipulation. So Atlanta holds the right to start. Atlanta will see the more favorable of Milwaukee's 2026 first-round pick and New Orleans' 2026 first-round pick. And Milwaukee will receive the less favorable of the two. Oh, New Orleans straight up don't have a pick this year. So Atlanta's getting New Orleans' pick. Milwaukee is getting Atlanta's pick. So for real, New Orleans don't have a pick, not even a second, and they're 9-32. That is crazy. So maybe they think rebuild, and maybe they think let's score some fucking draft picks because we don't friggin' have any. Maybe, probably not, but maybe they think let's get some picks so we don't have any and we suck. 3 picks minimum. Like, we're not even, they're not even picking up the phone unless 3 picks flash up as like the caller ID. 3 first-round picks. So immediately 3 first-round picks, okay? They will obviously value expiring contracts over long-term ones. So forget about Quickly, forget about Pirtle. This has to be RJ Barrett. Maybe you have to stack on a young player. Who do they got? Like, who would they just freaking dump out of here? Like, Kevon Looney, 2 years. Get rid of that contract, right? Ochai Agbaji, 1 year. Sweet. That expires in a year. What's missing here? Remove if. Come on, man. All right. Who else can we help you out with? We can take. I know a lot of players. I don't know Micah P. Sure, Micah. You know what? Frick, DeAndre Jordan. Let's do DeAndre Jordan. Oh man. DeAndre Jordan isn't trade eligible until 20. Whatever. Otherwise, the trade is good. Praying, if you could do something here. 3 picks. You get Trey Murphy. I'm just saying. I don't think that quite does it, because not a humongous benefit for the Pelicans to do it. But I am pulling that fucking trigger on this one. I am pulling the trigger on this one. Salaway says Trey Murray does good, but he doesn't put us over the top. Does he put us over the top? I don't think so. I tell you what, I think so. I am doing this. And I'm also trading for Ja Morant on top of this. And I'm starting. I'm in PlayStation mode now. I'm starting Ja Morant. I'm starting Trey Murphy, Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, and Jakob Poeltl. That is a team that is going to be tough to beat in a playoff series. That is spacing, question marks. Right? But there already are. And Trey Murphy adds a lot to your spacing. Brandon Ingram can kind of shoot. Barnes has been better this season. Ja Morant's putting pressure on the rim. He's playing a good pick and roll game with Poeltl. That's a pretty good team. That is a pretty good team. And Trey Murphy gives you time. Trey Murphy's perfect. Trey Murphy is perfect for the roster. It gives you time to maybe maneuver stuff elsewhere to strengthen around of the new core of, Ja Morant, Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, Trey Murphy. That's just like, my PlayStation. If I'm playing like my career, that's what I'm trying to do right now. But these are far-fetched. That is much less far-fetched than the Jaren Jackson Jr. I don't think it's impossible. I think there's a trade out there that New Orleans would think about, because they have no picks this year, and they could just stack up draft picks. Say what you want about R.J. Barrett. He's been great this season. R.J. Barrett has done everything asked of him this season and more. This is like the highest output of what R.J. Barrett can do on the court. The Raps are winning more when he plays versus when he's not playing. But it is undeniable how much of an upgrade that is from a fit perspective, and it is an upgrade from a talent perspective as well when it comes to providing winning basketball in the NBA. I mean, I hope we're on the. I hope we get on the phone about this. I'd like to, if I'm Bob, I gotta see. I gotta see what they're thinking. Hey, I'll be like, hey, you guys absolutely, positively suck, right? You guys are the worst team in the NBA potentially. And you don't own a single draft pick this year. We can change that. We can give you a first this year. It's not going to be a great first, but at least you have something this year. And 2 future picks. Maybe you package those together and get something else this year. And then the Pelicans go, we're not giving you Trey Murphy, and hang up the phone. That's probably what happens. But I'm calling them. I'm calling them, and I'm asking about it. You're doing yourself a disservice if you're not asking about that. I don't know how these phone calls go. How often these guys call each other? Are they even calling each other? Do you think they text or do you think they call? Do you think it's like Moneyball, where like the secretary comes in and is like, Mark Shapiro's on line 3 for you? Or do you think like it's texting, like my fantasy league? What would it take? What would it take? Bobby Webster's texting Pelicans Pelicans management. What would it take to get Trey Murphy from you? And they say Scotty Barnes and 3-4 first-round picks. And then, well, let's be serious now. I don't know. How do you think they'd do it? I think calling's just like inconvenient. It's their job, though. They got to pick up the phone, but maybe it's a power move to call them. We're off track. I'd probably text them. It'd be like texting. I'd like text them and then I'd throw my phone because I'm so scared of fucking reply. Oh, man. Jimbo said, I always imagined it was Leo DiCaprio in the one scene of The Wolf of Wall Street. I've only seen that once. You'll have to refresh my memory. Moneyball I've seen like fucking 400 times, so I know that one. Yeah, Masai was always in the BlackBerry. So he was probably texting, man. He was on BBM. Can you believe? Like, what are the all-time fumbles of like 3-1 leads? Figuratively speaking. Like Skype had probably a 30-point lead in game 4 of a series. They had a 3-0 lead in and somehow lost to Zoom in the pandemic. Like, Skype was up 3-0, up 30 points in the 4th quarter, and still lost the series to Zoom. BlackBerry definitely had a 3-1 lead over iMessage. Does iMessage even exist? How old is iMessage? iMessage started in 2011. BBM started. That's not BBM. BBM was like 07? 05. Yeah, BBM fumbled. BBM was up 3-1 in that series. What are we talking about? Oh, Masai, the BlackBerry. What's another figurative 3-1 lead? I'm sure there's others. kind of have to know at this point. Let's ask ChatGPT. Okay. This is going to be... Okay, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it into the mic. This is gonna be an insane prompt, but like, what are the largest figurative blown 3-1 leads in the history of like products, brands, etc.? So, for instance, BBM, BlackBerry Messenger, started in 2005. Was wildly popular, yet somehow got overtaken by iMessage and like just general texting when iMessage only came out in 2011. Or another example is Skype was extremely popular, was like the go-to source for video calling, but somehow when it came to the pandemic, all of a sudden Zoom was the primary method for video calls, or even Google Meet, and Skype slowly became obsolete, just like BlackBerry Messenger. What are other examples of that you can provide? All right, let's send that to ChatGPT and see. Blockbuster had a 3-1 lead over Netflix. That's a good one. Blockbuster fumbled. Absolutely. All right, let's see. I mean, maybe like Motorola in the cell phone industry, or Nokia. I guess it's BBM. That's BlackBerry. Ooh. MySpace versus Facebook. That's pretty good. Kodak versus digital photography. It's like Kodak versus like Canon, Nikon, Sony. That's also a pretty good one. Oh, man. Yahoo versus Google as like a search provider. To be fair, well, Yahoo even passed. Didn't Google offer Yahoo? Sorry, wasn't Yahoo offered to buy Google for like $1 million? They said no or something like that. Something fucking crazy. Anyways. These funky little stories interest me. This has nothing to do with basketball. All because somebody said Messiah on the BlackBerry was goated. All right. It's been an hour. Thanks for hanging out. Mama was out tonight. Oh boy. We got nobody tonight. So Quickly is ruled out. It's official. Emmanuel Quickly's not playing. It is official now that Mama Killisvili is not playing. Yeah, it's going to be a tough game. Thankfully, we're playing the Pacers, and it's still winnable, realistically. But I think the Pacers at home might even be favored for this one. It's going to be tight. Anyways, I'm going to be live in 43 minutes for that Raptors game against the Indiana Pacers. Thank you so much for joining me here tonight. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, hit the like button. For more content like it, hit the subscribe button. I'll see you guys soon for our watch along for the Raptors against the Pacers.